Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience. I'm here tonight with my full review of the Hifiman Ananda Stealth Edition. And what's going to be different about this review from my first impressions is that the bulk of this review is going to be about comparisons between this headphone and four other headphones, and that would be the Hifiman Edition XS, the Ananda Non-Stealth Edition, and the Aria Stealth Edition headphone, and I'm also throwing in the LSA HP2 Ultra because it's one of my favorite headphones and it sells for about the same price. So anyway, this headphone was loaned to me for review by Hifiman, and it currently sells for $699 through Hifiman, or is also available through APOS Audio, and I will throw a link in the notes below the video. This is a wired, full-size, over-the-ear, open-back headphone. It uses planar magnetic drivers with stealth magnets, and the short version stealth magnets are rounded on one side, so when the sound waves travel past them, it causes less interference and less distortion. So Hifiman's using those on pretty much all their headphones now. Anyway, the impedance is 27 ohms. The sensitivity is 103 decibels at 1 milliwatt. So these are pretty easy to drive. These are one of the easiest to drive planar magnetic headphones that I've reviewed so far. Not quite as easy as lower impedance dynamic driver headphones, but probably about even with some of the Kennerton planar magnetic headphones, and easier to drive than any of the other Hifiman planar magnetics other than the original Ananda. So anyway, Hifiman claims a weight of 440 grams. These weighed in on my scale at 448 grams, so we're pretty close there. They come with a detachable cable, and it's your standard Hifiman cable that comes on everything from the Sandara to the Edition XS. Pretty much all the headphones, the lower end, well, low to medium end Hifiman. It's a rubberized material. It's about 5 feet long. Has your 3.5 millimeter connections at your headphone end, and a 3.5 millimeter 90-degree angle connection at the amp end, and also comes with your adapter to go to 6.3 millimeters. And I did want to mention that during my reviews, I did use a balanced cable on any of the amps that did have a balanced output. Anyway, I'll roll in here a little bit closer. Oh, before I forget, I did want to mention this. I didn't mention it in my first impressions, and I completely forgot on my review of the Hifiman Sandara Closeback, is both the Sandara Closeback and the Ananda Stealth come with this cool little headphone stand, which is part of the packing in the box. The headphone sits around this and then inside a foam surrounding, but anyway, you pull this out and use it for a pretty cool headphone stand. So I thought that was a great idea. I don't know why anyone else hadn't thought of that. Back to what I was doing. Let me roll in a little bit here and give you a close-up view of the headphone. And the first thing you notice, it has the egg shape like the Edition XS, the original Ananda, and the Aria. And the grills on this, on the Edition XS, I'm pretty sure they're plastic. On the Aria, I'm pretty sure they're aluminum, and I think these are aluminum also. They have kind of a ring to them when I run my fingernail across them. But anyway, you've got the same headband that came on the original Ananda, and also on the Sandara and the Sandara Closeback. And anyway, you got your metal yokes here, your steel headband with your this is synthetic leather head strap, you've got a little bit of flex this way, not a whole lot, but enough that it'll conform to your head and, you know, seal up against around your ears. The ear pads are tapered, you can see here. They're synthetic leather on the outside, a cloth material on the inside. They are soft and real comfortable. And you can see how they adjust here. You got your click stops here. And as far as comfort, these weigh in at 448 grams, which is pretty average for a full-size over-the-ear headphone. And they are very comfortable, except for one issue I do have, and that's that the egg-shaped ear cups on the Hifiman headphones, the Edition XS, the Ananda Aria, they all ride real low. They're down on your jaw, and I haven't heard many complaints about that, but I have heard a few, and it takes me a little while to get used to that. You know, it just kind of puts a little bit of pressure down here that other headphones don't. You can slide these up further to avoid that problem, but if you do that, it kind of changes the sound stage. If you wear these up too high, same thing with the Ananda Stealth, if you wear it up too high, it makes the sound stage narrower and taller, where it just, to me, sounds better if my ear is up in the top part of this ear cup, which puts this, the bottom of the ear cup down across my jaw. And I'll be honest, I get used to it pretty fast, but at first, you know, when I haven't worn one of these headphones, it's just a little bit annoying, you know, a little bit uncomfortable to me. But like I said, if you're gonna buy a pair of these and wear them often, you'll get used to it pretty quick. I don't think that will be a problem. Before I get into my review of the sound of this, I wanted to mention the music I use, a combination of different kinds of rock, pop, electronic, and probably acoustic music more than anything. And then I did want to mention my clean power was supplied by Core Power Technologies, and I've been using their power conditioner for quite a while now. It's on sort of a long-term loan. And my source for my music came from my Cambridge Audio CD transport, and the equipment that I used in testing this headphone, and there is quite a bit. I've had it for, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 months now. But anyway, I've used the Topping D70S MQA version DAC. I've used the Audio GD R8 MK2 DAC, the LSA Hyperdrive 2 headphone amp, the FIO K9 Pro ESS version, which is a combination DAC and amp, the Hifiman EF400 combination DAC amp, the Audio GD Master 9 headphone amp as a stack with the R8 MK2 DAC, the Topping A90 discrete headphone amp, the Felix Audio Echo and Elise, both are OTL Type 2 amps, and the Waveborn Power Amp Plus, which is a transformer coupled tube amp, and a couple little amps by iFi Audio, the Zen Air DAC, and the Uno, which is a combination DAC amp. So anyway, I've used a lot of equipment with this headphone, and like I said earlier, I did do extensive comparisons to 4 other headphones, and I'll get into the comparisons right after I give you sort of a short version of the sound, because I probably talked about that quite a bit in my first impressions. But sometimes my feelings about sound quality, about different things can change, you know, from that first impressions, which is usually done a few days to a week after I get a headphone, and usually I only have a few hours of listening time in at that point, where, you know, by the time I do my full review, I might have 20, 30, maybe even 40 hours of listening in. So anyway, at this point, I would describe the tone balance as almost neutral, with a slight boost or a bump in the mid bass, and slightly warmer than neutral mid range, all the way through the mids to the high mids. I would consider the extension very good on both ends. This headphone extends well into the sub bass, and it extends well into the treble. And I did want to mention, because this headphone is pretty sensitive and easy to drive, that it works with just about any amp almost equally. I mean, it does scale up with a better amp, but it doesn't take a lot of power to drive this headphone, and this headphone isn't real dependent on the amp. It sounds good on almost anything I plugged it into, including the little Hi-Fi, I don't know if you can see it back here, the Uno, which is a $79 amp deck combo. Even that does a really good job of driving this headphone. But like I said, if you do plug it into a really good amp, though, it does sound even better. But anyway, getting into description of the sound, the sub bass, it extends well. It doesn't have the deepest sub bass or the most weight to the sub bass of any headphone, every headphone I've tried. Even the Edition XS gets a little bit lower, has a little bit more weight, but it does decent. I would consider the sub bass neutral. It's definitely there, but it's not really emphasized, where, like I said, with the Edition XS, the sub bass has a little bit of emphasis. The mid bass is really good on this headphone. I like it a lot. It just has a slight emphasis, a little bit more mid bass compared to the original Ananda, but it's very tight, it's very well controlled, it's very clean, it's very detailed, and it has a pretty good kick to it. This headphone is dynamic, and the bass does have good punch to it. Getting into the mids, I would say they're a little on the warm side of neutral, and I actually like that a lot. I lately have been preferring headphones that have a slightly warm of neutral mid-range, but this headphone does it without losing detail. The thing I really like about this headphone is female vocals. They have a nice, smooth, liquid, rich sound, and just sound really beautiful on this headphone. And then getting into the treble, it extends well, and it has good sparkle without being harsh and without being fatiguing. The soundstage on this headphone is large. Not huge large, not as large as the original Aria, but larger than the current Aria Stealth. Good width, good height, not a huge amount of depth, but actually, I haven't heard a Hifiman headphone yet that I've thought had a whole lot of depth to the soundstage, but I haven't heard anything above the Aria yet. But it does have a little bit better depth compared to like the Edition XS. It does have a bit of a three-dimensional sound to it. The imaging is very good, very clean. Everything is separated very well, and the imaging is pretty pinpoint. I mean, you can, point exactly where each instrument's coming from without them really blurring together. And the opposite of that would be a headphone where everything just sounds like it's coming from here and here, and you don't hear instruments out in front of you, you don't hear them up above, you don't hear them down below, where this headphone does a very good job of separating each instrument into its own location, and they're not blurring together along with the vocals. I mean, they sound completely separate from the instruments. The detail and resolution is really this headphone's strong point. The detail is exceptional, and it holds its own against pretty much any headphone I've heard at any price, and it does it while being warm and rich at the same time, which is hard to do. A lot of headphones that have a warm, rich mid-range give up a lot of detail because of that. But this headphone, and it's not drastically warm of neutral, it's just a little on the warm side of neutral, just enough to make it really pleasant and enjoyable, but it doesn't sacrifice any detail at all doing that. So, like I said, I really like the mid-range on this headphone. I guess I'm going to get into my comparisons, and I'll start with the Edition XS. And a lot of people want to know, I keep getting the question, is this headphone a step up from the Edition XS? Is it worth it to spend the extra $200, or is it worth it to upgrade from the Edition XS to this headphone? And my simple answer is yes. Okay, the Edition XS, its strongest point is its sub bass. It does have good extension into the sub bass, but other than that, and I would say even better than the Ananda Stealth, but other than that, I would say the Ananda Stealth is better than the Edition XS in every way, and not by a little bit, by a significant amount. Okay, the sub bass goes lower on the Edition XS, but I feel that the sub bass is tighter and better controlled on this headphone. And then getting into the mid bass, not only does the Ananda Stealth do a better job of controlling the mid bass, keeping it tighter, but it's also has more punch to it. This is definitely a more dynamic headphone than the Edition XS. It definitely has more punch, more slam to the mid bass, so it almost makes it sound like this headphone is more bassy than the Edition XS, but the Edition XS does go a little bit lower into the sub bass. But anyway, really good bass on this. Not a bass headphone. It's not a really emphasized headphone. It's not an emphasized bass, just a little bit of emphasis, maybe 3 to 5 decibels, somewhere in there. Just, it puts it up. It's more bassy than the original Ananda by a little bit. Definitely more bassy than the Sandara. Kind of on the line of the Sandara closeback, but it's a better bass than the Sandara closeback, in my opinion. Where was that? Oh yeah, my comparison to the Edition XS. Okay, the Edition XS has nice, warm mid-range, and the female vocals do sound really good on it, but it gives up a little bit of detail. The Sandara open back, in my opinion, has better detail than the Edition XS. Okay, this headphone has almost as warm of mid-range as the Edition XS, but a lot more detail. The detail is more similar to the Sandara open back, but with a warmer, richer sound. So, like I said, pretty much in every respect, I feel that the Ananda Stealth is a definite step up from the Edition XS. Not taking anything away from the Edition XS. In my opinion, the Edition XS is the best headphone under $500 right now. But this headphone is only $200 more at $699, and I feel it's significantly better. I definitely would pick this headphone in a second over the Edition XS. It's just quite a bit more detail and tighter, better sounding bass, and the treble extends a little higher on this too. The Edition XS, I feel that the treble rolls off just a little bit, where it extends well and it has good sparkle, and I enjoy the treble better on this. So like I said, the Edition XS does have that great sub bass, but I would pick this headphone in every other respect, and it is a significant amount. If you're thinking about trading up from the XS to the Ananda Stealth, you will definitely hear a difference, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. Okay, compared to the original Ananda, the non-stealth version, there's not a huge difference. I just recently reviewed the original Ananda, Had a chance to compare both side by side extensively using several different amps. And I would say the Ananda Stealth is better, but it's not better by a huge amount. If you already have an Ananda, you will gain a little bit by trading up. I do consider it an upgrade, but not a huge upgrade. It's slightly better in several ways, and I'll start with the sub bass. I feel that the Stealth version goes a little bit deeper and has a little bit more weight to the sub bass compared to the original Ananda, but it's not a lot different. It's just a little bit. I feel that the Stealth version of the Ananda has a little bit more weight to the mid bass and a little bit more punch, but it's not a lot. It's not a big difference. The biggest difference I hear between the two is I feel that the Stealth version has a warmer, and that's the most significant difference, is the mid-range is definitely warmer, and female vocals have a not only warmer but a little more liquid, a little smoother, and a little richer sound, and it just makes it a little bit more enjoyable. And like I said, it's not a huge difference, but that's the biggest difference that I hear with this headphone compared to the original Ananda. The treble sounds about the same to me. Both have very good treble with good sparkle without being harsh or fatiguing. Okay, compared to the Aria Stealth, and once again I had the chance to compare the two side by side. This headphone sounds a lot like the Aria Stealth, and it's almost there but not quite. The Aria Stealth is a great headphone in my opinion. It has what I would describe as almost perfect tone balance, exceptional clarity and detail. I love everything about the Aria Stealth. The only thing that keeps the Aria Stealth excuse me. The only thing that keeps the Aria Stealth from being an almost perfect headphone, in my opinion, is it lost some of the soundstage width that the original Aria version 1 had. And if I hadn't have heard the version 1, I may not even notice that, because the Aria Stealth still has a decent soundstage width. Is this occasionally, and usually instruments sound fairly wide on it, kind of average for an open back, but sometimes vocals sound kind of narrow on the Aria Stealth. They can be kind of right in the middle where they don't really wrap around at all. So anyway, other than that little bit of a narrow soundstage on the Aria Stealth, I feel it's an almost perfect headphone. Okay, the Ananda Stealth is very close. It doesn't go quite as low in the sub bass as the Aria. It doesn't have quite as much weight to the sub bass. It doesn't have quite as much weight or punch to the mid bass as the Aria Stealth, but it's close. It isn't quite as warm and rich in the mid range as the Aria Stealth, but it's close, and it doesn't have quite the detail that the Aria Stealth does, but it's close. And the Aria Stealth, in my opinion, has the best treble I've heard. Just the cleanest, most detailed treble I've heard. But I guess even though it is very present, it doesn't sound fatiguing or harsh to me, but because it's so clean. Well, anyway, the Ananda is almost there, but not quite. So, in my opinion, the Aria Stealth beats out the Ananda Stealth a little bit in the sub bass, a little bit in the mid bass, a little bit in the mid range as far as being slightly warmer, but even more detail. And that's what really impresses me about the Aria Stealth, is a nice, warm, lush, rich mid-range, but yet exceptional detail in the mid-range. And I don't know how Hi-Fi Man did that, but anyway, it's very impressive, and the Ananda is not too far behind it. So, in my opinion, the Ananda Stealth is actually quite a bit closer to the Aria Stealth than it is to the Edition XS. It's significantly better than the Edition XS in my opinion, but I've heard at least one other reviewer argue that. But I'm not going to say who it was, but I kind of questioned the way he had it hooked up and the amps he was using and all that. I mean, I used a lot of different amps, different decks, and did a lot of comparisons because I believe in something called synergy, and you can't review a headphone with just one amp. Even if it's a great amp, some headphones just don't synergize well with some amps, and vice versa. You can't review an amp based on one headphone because sometimes they just don't match up in a really great way, and sometimes they do, you know. So anyway, so yeah, but I would say that the Aria Stealth is better in every way except for soundstage width than the Ananda, but it's not a huge difference, and price-wise, you're looking at a $200 jump from the Edition XS to the Ananda Stealth, but then a $600 jump from the Ananda Stealth to the Aria Stealth, and that's a big jump. So, you know, but I actually believe the Ananda is closer to the Aria in sound. So, the Ananda Stealth is definitely a contender for my most bang for the buck headphone of the year, which I need to get that out. I'm past due on that, but been really busy with a lot of other things like doing repairs on my truck and things like that. So anyway, so I hope to get that out very soon, hopefully this week. So anyway, then the last comparison I want to do is the LSA HP2. And if you've watched my videos, you know that the HP2 was my best headphone under $1,000 last year and was my headphone of the year 2 years ago. Still love that headphone, and so I compared the two, and gotta be honest, this headphone is definitely a contender for those spots. This headphone, well, I'll tell you what, I tried the LSA HP2 against this using a couple of different amps, and using the Topping D90 Discreet, which is an extremely clean, detailed headphone, but in my opinion, it's not the warmest sounding headphone, or a headphone amp. It can sound a little bit dry, a little bit sterile. So anyway, using the HP2 with the Topping, I would say I preferred the Hifiman Ananda. The one thing that the HP2 did is it definitely has the best sub bass. The HP2 has fantastic sub bass. It goes low. It's got weight to the sub bass, yet it's very clean and detailed with really good texture. I love the sub bass on the HP2. Where I thought the Ananda Stealth pulled away a little bit was in the mid-range. Both are extremely clean and detailed, but the Ananda did it with a little bit more warmth and a little bit more richer sound. Also, I think the Ananda extends into the treble just a little bit better. Okay, so comparing the two, both on solid state amps, I actually preferred the Ananda a little bit over the HP2. Okay, but then I switched the HP2 over to an OTL tube amp. And the one I used in my comparison was the Felix Audio Echo, which happens to work really well with a lot of planar magnetic headphones. Not the hard to drive ones, but the easier planar to magnetic headphones actually match up really well with the Echo. So anyway, using the Echo with the HP2, it not only gives it even more weight and more texture to the bass, but it warms up the mid-range some. So now with the HP2 connected to a tube amp, and not an outrageously expensive amp, that I have the version 1 of that. The version 2 I think sells for under $1,000. Not cheap, but you know, for a nice tube amp, it's not that bad. So anyway, excuse me just a second. So anyway, when using both headphones, the HP2 and the Ananda Stealth, with solid state amps, I preferred the Ananda a little bit over the HP2, just mostly because of that richer, warmer mid-range. Even though, like I said, the HP2 has that fantastic sub bass. But when I switched over the LSA HP2 to a tube amp, it gave it even better sub bass and warmed up the mid-range. Now it's real close. Now it was a real close competition, and I would have a hard time deciding. So I'm probably going to give the overall win to the Ananda because it sounds good with pretty much any amp I hook it up to. The LSA is actually even easier to drive and will work with any amp, but a tube amp, either the Felix Audio Echo, the Felix Audio Elise, or I also use the Waveborn Power Amp Plus, which I think is actually the best amp I've heard with the HP2. Just, it makes it sound incredible, and in that, when using it with one of these tube amps, it's real hard. It would be very hard for me to decide if I preferred the HP2 or the Ananda Stealth. So it kind of depends on what amp you're going to hook the HP2 up, which one I would recommend. If you've got, something like a topping amp that has sort of a dry, sterile sound, I would say go with the Ananda. But if you've got a nice OTL tube amp, HP2, you can't go wrong with that. So anyway, so bottom line, do I recommend this headphone? Yes, I definitely recommend this headphone. It's an outstanding deal for its price of $699. Like I said, most likely going to be my most bang for the buck headphone of 2022. It's almost an Aria Stealth at $600 less. Not quite there, but almost, but it does actually have a wider sound stage than the Aria. So my opinion of the Ananda Stealth, it's basically what you're getting is the sound of a high-end headphone at a mid-fi price. And I know some people would argue, is $699 a mid-fi price? A couple of years ago, I would say that was above mid-fi. I would say a couple of years ago, mid-fi would be like $400 or $500. Now, with the price of high-end headphones going higher and higher, how many headphones now are $4,000, $5,000, $6,000? So now, where does that put mid-fi? So to me, I would say $699 qualifies as mid-fi, and I would say this is an incredible headphone that competes with just about any high-end headphone I could compare it to. And no, I haven't heard, the Susvara or the Abyss or some of, the really high-end stuff. But, this headphone can hold its own against headphones costing 2, 3, even 4 times this price. So outstanding for the price. And this headphone has nothing about it that I don't like. It really has no flaws in my opinion. There's just nothing that really stands out as being wrong with it, and it's easy to drive. It matches up with almost any amp. You don't need to spend a lot of money on an amp to get most of its sound quality out. But yes, if you hook it up to high-end amps and DACs, you will. It does scale, it does keep getting better, but you don't need that, especially to get started. If you buy this headphone and all you've got is something like this little $79 iFi Uno, you're going to get like 90% of what this headphone can do out of, a little amp like that, and upgrade your amp and your DAC at a later time. So yes, definitely recommend this headphone, and I'm almost positive you're going to hear about it in my year-end review, which hopefully will come up in the next week. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And the Headphone Experience on Facebook is up to 20.6 thousand members. Hope to see you all over there. Once again, thanks for watching my video.